good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last panel for the day. And I hope you enjoyed the discussions earlier and that they were insightful. So for this session, we'll be talking about and really delving into community-owned production systems. And we have panelists with us here who have a wealth of experience working directly with communities and setting up more just and sustainable food production systems across the Philippines. Yeah, so just enjoy your food. And we welcome your inputs also during this session. So there will be 2 points in this panel where you'll be writing on pieces of paper so that we're able to hear your thoughts as well. And then we'll be posting them on the wall. So we want as much as possible dialogue in this session. All right, so allow me to welcome our panelists this afternoon. So first, we will be joined by Ms. Visitacion Apostol, who is the head of supply chain from Good Neighbors International Philippines and the lead for the Economic Development Division of the organization. So Good Neighbors International Philippines has been working with improving the lives of Filipinos, especially the children. All right, and then we'll be joined by Ms. Alvira Reyes, the founder of Philippine Coffee Alliance and the CEO of Botes Central. So the Philippine Coffee Alliance was formed through the initiative of 32 individuals from the 25 coffee industry players in 2011. And also coming with us here is Mr. Dan Diaz, the Executive Director of Seed for Com, or the Sustainable Energy and Enterprise Development for Communities. So he is a community developer and has had worked with different sectors in education, training, renewables, and the like. All right, so I hope that this will be like an insightful. Oops. Oh, muntik na may mabasag. Anyway, yeah. Hope that it will be an insightful experience for us this afternoon. Sige, I'll move to this chair. Okay. All right. Sige po. So, this session is founded on the perspective that resource scarcity is a result of an overexploitation of resources to increase the quantity supplied, and that the hypothesis is that better management of resources can be achieved by strengthening or maintaining community-owned food production systems. Right, so I'll let our panelists share their experience and also introduce what they do. All right, so we'll go first with Mr. Dan Diaz.
Bonjour, salam alaikum, and good day, everyone. Tonyo, good afternoon. I'm Dan Diaz, founder of Sustainable Energy and Enterprise Development for Communities. We are already 8 years. We started our program on energy access after the Super Typhoon Haiyan in the Visayas. And from then on, we promote and protect our environment to the communities we serve. That's because we know that the environment is important because we are all connected and it's the source of life and livelihood. So we have to keep it and maintain it. After that, we educate our community partners through community-based training, non-formal with ALS, with TechVoc programs, as well as ATI, the Agricultural Training Institute programs for farming. And then lastly, enterprise development, which is empowering communities, transforming lives by engaging, looking at their resources, how we can put value and connect to market with the communities that locally available. So that's Seed for Com, Sustainable Energy and Enterprise Development for Communities to vulnerable areas, including IPs all over the country. Thank you, Tonyo.
Thank you. All right. How about Ms. VC? Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Vice Apostol. I'm representing the Good Neighbors International Philippines. Good Neighbors is present in 43 countries across the globe. In the Philippines, we are in Visayas, Luzon, and Mindanao. Our core programs are focused on health education, income generation, climate change, green development. And one of the major programs that we have so far implemented is on building resilient communities on climate change climate change adaptation and mitigation, where we have served thousands of community members in San Clemente, Tarlac. And apart from that, we are also catering to fisher folks, farmers groups, and other marginalized communities across the country. So far, for the building resilient communities which focus on climate change, adaptation, and mitigation, we have developed several models that includes providing field farmers school to more than 100 farmer leaders, where their capacities on agricultural technologies were improved, and they have so far been very happy on the results of the programs and projects. And in terms of partnership, we have the triangulation of partnership involving the local government unit and the farmers themselves, because we believe the ownership and the sustainability of the project. It is for these reasons that we are putting on board the local government units and the stakeholders themselves.
Thank you. All right. And then Miss Vi.
Yeah. Thank you, Tonyo. I have 3 slides. Okay. My name is Vi Reyes. I am the owner and the CEO of Bote Central. Bote Central is a family social enterprise. So we founded Coffee Alamid. That was our entry level. But now I'm using the hat as the president of the Philippine Coffee Alliance. The Philippine Coffee Alliance is a network organization of farmer holders and small entrepreneurs. So in this picture, just to show you that this is a farmer woman roaster entrepreneur. So what am I saying is that community-based coffee enterprises are all over the Philippines. So we have established, not as Philippine Coffee Alliance, but we have helped establish, and part of our alliances is community-based coffee enterprises wherein women play a big role. As I would always say, without women, without Filipino women, there would be no Filipino coffee at all. So this is in Sagada. This is husband and wife. Next, please. This is in Bukidnon, Maramag, Bukidnon. Again, the women are playing processing, farmers, roasting, coffee shop, barista, the complete soil to cup value chain of coffee. Next, please. And of course, the women would also play the role of accountants or bookkeepers, so that they will be able to know the retail sales of the companies or the community-based coffee enterprises. And by the way, I would like to digress a little with the title of it's not, for us, it's not just about production. It should be production and consumption.
Thank you very much. All right. And then we'll share also the slides of...
All right. Yes, I prepared 3 slides. All right. This is the climate resilient agricultural models and practices that we have so far developed for more than 3 years in partnership with the Cooperative of Farmers in San Clemente, and of course in partnership with the local government unit of San Clemente. The project was entitled Building Resilient Communities Through Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation in the Municipality of San Clemente. You might be asking and wondering why climate change adaptation and mitigation, because in that area, the farmers have experienced in many years flooding, drought. So in effect, their produce are adversely affected, and they sometimes during typhoons they experience days of flooding. And the adverse effect of that is that their produce are totally devastated. So in our jargon, luging-lugi po sila. It is for this reason that in consultation with the local government unit and with the farmers, we have developed this kind of project. And this project yielded to a very good results and milestones. We have capacitated more than 100 farmers in the area, and we have provided them series of FFS, or what we call the Farmers Field School. And of course, we have also established the Climate Information System. The CIS, or the Climate Information System, is an anticipatory action of the different disasters visiting our country. And we have developed several systems and technologies in terms of climate information system. And one of the things that we are very proud of is the establishment of automated weather system, which was set up or constructed at the heart of the municipality within the area of the local government unit. And this automated weather system is the one feeding information to our 12 barangays, because our 12 barangays are beneficiaries of other accessories of the climate information system. We provided them public address system. If you are aware of the public address system, this is a early warning system that can be used prior to the coming of a different disaster in the area. It will make dissemination of information very fast, because the public address system can reach the entire barangay. So imagine the primitive way of announcing that there will be a typhoon going house to house, whereas when you use the public address system, you can just use it in few minutes, and the entire community can already learn about the coming of a certain disaster. So that's a very good innovation coming from the organization together with the community and the farmers themselves. Another one is that we have installed kiosks at the heart of the municipality, where this can be an information dissemination hub, not only for the employees of the municipality, but this can also be accessed by the community visiting the offices of the municipality. So those are some of the few things that we have so far introduced in San Clemente. Moving to the next slide, we have trained 83 farmer leaders, and these farmer leaders were taught on how to breed different varieties of rice. And we are very happy to inform you that we have produced flood-tolerant varieties of rice, disease-tolerant varieties of rice. And these are very helpful to the farmers, because the municipality of San Clemente is often visited by flooding and typhoon. So the coming of the flood-tolerant varieties are very helpful, because imagine if the municipality is being flooded for 3 days, we have those varieties who can withstand the flooding. So it's a very good innovation and introduction of technology to the farmers, because we can predict that in the coming years, when they will practice planting the flood-tolerant varieties, we can see that their produce will not be totally devastated. So those are some of the project milestones that we have so far. I think that's it. I've explained already the climate information system, where the automated weather station was established. We have also the app, the kiosk, and the smart TVs distributed to the 12 barangays.
All right. Salamat, Miss VC. Okay. And then I'll introduce briefly what we do at Farm Lab. Okay, so I'll show you just 3 photos just for context. All right, so the imagination for Farm Lab is really, it's a community of practice. We're not, in the most traditional sense of the word, a business. We're an enabler for community businesses to start or thrive. So the project started as a personal farming project. I have been farming for 4 years now, like tending to the land actually. And then during that whole process, I was meeting people and looking at the problems that they encounter as producers, as farmers. And you see that throughout the value chain, as we'd like to call it, at certain points or all the points in the value chain, there are failures or there are things that need to be adjusted. But really, we're looking at more local solutions that people can scale, that people can implement even with limited budget. So in this garden, we worked with a community in Alabang, and this is a training area that's producing a diversity of different vegetables for consumption. So it started at that, with the assumption that you can produce your own food for eating, for daily eating. And then from that, it turns into an enterprise if you want it. Right? Let's go to the next slide. Oh, all right. So nag-move yung items. Anyway, so this whole project turned into like an adventure to look at more community-led food production systems, right? So we're looking at the learning farm as the core or the multiplier for these things to thrive. Because really we believe that small and scalable solutions are able to solve some parts of the problems that we're encountering. And that when you're relocalizing, you are already solving things like logistics. You're not thinking about moving your produce from one point to another. And also you're solving the hunger problem or the waste problem. So the imagination for this project, this is one we're deploying in Siargao after the storm. Farmers were really, really troubled after Odette. That was last year. That's a category 5 super typhoon. And they were devastated. That's 2 million trees, coconut trees that were cut down. So people were open to learning more natural systems, farming systems that are diversified, that are rooted in agroecology. So that turned into 4 municipalities adapting the program and 200 farmers, individual farmers, implementing the techniques that we were exploring with them that were also culturally sensitive to what Siargao is practicing. And then that links into more of the conservation part or the agroforestry part, since the Siargao Island landscapes and seascapes is a protected area. And we'd like to think that agriculture also has the keys to regenerate land because it's often, divorced from each other. And then you're also forming a community market that farmers are also leading. So they're pricing the commodities by themselves. They talk every quarter and then they figure out how to price their vegetables. Right? Let's go to the last slide. Oh, all right. The previous one. Okay. Oh, it's not there. Wala na. Can we look? Anyway, all right, sige. Kwento ko na lang, no? So we're focusing on human scale agriculture. Agriculture that doesn't necessarily need really intense digitization or, the very, very heavy inputs for people to implement with the capacities that they have, with the resources that they have. And the imagination is for communities to implement this. They're producing their own food na iba-ibang klase, different varieties of vegetables, and for that to proliferate across the Philippines. All right. Okay, so now we'll go more into what our panelists are doing with their respective communities and what really is community-owned food production. Ano yung itsura nun? How does that play out in the field? Sige po. Anyone naman can speak. Yes.
Hi. We're very fortunate that in the Philippines, we are a coffee consuming country. But unfortunately, we import most of our supply. So what we did, so that we will have some supply, to use and to roast and to drink, what we did was to add value to coffee. But before we can add value to coffee is that they should have complete support as far as financing is concerned, training, all the things that you hear so that farmers will be able to earn more. You see, what we did was that so that communities will be able to drink their own coffee, we put roasting machines all over owned by the communities themselves. So communities should have organized farmer network, meaning farmers, women, youth, and indigenous peoples, because these are the people who are protecting our forests, community agroforest. So what we did was that for them, not just to be farmer suppliers for big multinational companies, which we hear so much about, but we'd want the farmers to roast their own coffee, process their own coffee, be their own baristas, be able to consume their own coffee as well. Farmers are not just suppliers. Farmers are also consumers. And when we want to educate people or farmers themselves, we also have to educate the consumers also. So whenever you drink your cup of coffee, I'd want you to be mindful where it comes from. We're very fortunate that GK is supporting the program as well of the Philippine Coffee Alliance, and you're drinking good, traceable, proudly Filipino coffee here at GK. All I'm saying is that when we do resource management for communities, there should be cash in and cash out within the community. It's not just about being suppliers for I'm talking about Filipino coffee. So it's not just about being suppliers of Filipino coffee, but being able to consume the coffee within the communities and being able to export. And when I say export is outside the community. That means there would be internet connection, there would be social media. All the factors involved for an enterprise to survive should be provided as an opportunity for the community-based coffee enterprises. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're advocating as Philippine Coffee Alliance. And we're not just talking about big multinational companies or supplying them coffee, green coffee beans, but being able to consume. I would always emphasize the word production and consumption, because if we just talk about production and no consumption, it's not going to be sustainable.
Yes, it has to be a whole system. How about you, Sir Dan? Your experience working with communities?
Yeah, thank you, Tonyo. So just to give you a background where I grew up, we live in a squatter area, and then it was reclaimed when I was a child, and it ended up that we decided to stay in a city instead of a relocation site in Cebu, which is usually in the mountain, undeveloped, no light, no road, where you are relocated. But over the weekend, I always spend that childhood with my grandmother and grandfather, who plant, because there's a lot of vacant space in that relocated site, maize, vegetables, poultry, chicken. So I grew up in that area that you can grow your own food. And at the same time, what you grow, you consume, and excess, you can sell. And that should be the community farms that I always look back. And during the COVID pandemic, one of our board member in Seed4Com, they have an 800 square area backyard not used. Because of COVID, we decided to make it as a backyard perma farm. And we already created a food gardens movement in Facebook. You can like that. The food gardens movement, we're in establishing backyard garden or community-based farm wherein people also can learn how to grow their own vegetables, because this is also a problem on our island communities. No? We really have to maximize our archipelagical country. We're not like Thailand that has great mass of land and their population is lower than us. That's why their production of rice is so abundant. And look at our rice field, right? So nawala na yung rice field natin. In fact, our forest is already 20%. And even our coral reef, 75% were destroyed. Just to go back, what we do in Seed4Com during the pandemic and over 8 years, we really reach out to our farmers and coastal communities. And we've created people's organization and provide them, we just listen to them. Like, what is a sustainable way of fishing? And we found out that in the island of Olango, where you have the migratory birds and has marine protected area, people go for a fish aggregated device. So they just go there with their fish and rod. But you know what? Fisher folks don't have access to capital to build that. So what we did with Seed4Com is to find corporate and friends to create that fish aggregated device. And eventually, even the pandemic, even with the typhoon, they can source out their food by going to that site and create the tourists, local tourists. We connect them to that place. They become a fisherman for a day. They enjoyed fishing. Then they catch, they pay, they cook. And that's how they appreciate now fisher folks. So we always call them food heroes, our food heroes. And in the upland community in Mount Manunggal, there are farmers. It's a watershed area. We put CSR component in greening like bamboo, cacao, native trees and fruits, but they have a lot of vegetables. During COVID pandemic, what we did is to link them with our partners online, local online shop, connect with the local mobile delivery that for a week they pay like 500 pesos, $10, and they have a box of vegetables that they can receive, supporting our farmers so that whatever they produce are already being marketed. So our learning is really working with communities wherever they are, listen and look back of what are their indigenous wisdom, how they produce, how they source food, and see how we can help them, whether capital, whether access to market, whether putting high value on it. And that should be done because that could bring in economic activity. And just now, one of the island there in Hilutungan, after Odette, they were also devastated. The coral reefs were destroyed. We are also planting coral reefs, coral planting. It's not just planting the mountains, but also the corals. And they now become protectors because they realize that the fish lives in the corals, and we do cleanups, And right now we had a partner project integrating innovation through internet access to point in that island and come up with sustainable livelihood and tourism. So the aim of this is inclusion in remote areas through renewable energy with internet connectivity. Then you can also create e-commerce, like booking an island hopping with that registered boats and fisher folks. You can also order, like I want to order these shells, these crabs, and I want to book a island hopping. So it's already done because of inclusive in terms of innovation. So we don't left them behind. And many stories to tell. But the idea there in community engagement is we have to listen. And second is we don't impose. We have to invest time to tell that to the people that we are there to help without, it's a long year of courtship. Then you win them. And from there you provide, instead of cleanups, we provide livelihood. They were being helped. And then it's easy when you say, okay, let's do cleanup, let's stop what is doing because you already helped them. So that's what we have done so far for the 8 years not just in Cebu, but all over the country.
Thank you. I think really that's a wealth of experience working intimately with communities, and hearing your stories, you're building relationships over time. And I read that in your NGO, you're also doing the same processes, that you are hand-holding with communities. Yes.
Right. That's why when you ask the question, community-owned food production, I ask myself further, who are the key players? Because we are an organization bringing closer the programs and services to the community. In essence, we are not residents of those communities. So I asked that question, who are the key players? So for us to define community-owned food production is that it should be the people, the residents of the area who are really mobilizing all the projects, all the activities, all the programs, not NGOs, not the other supporters of programs or projects, because ultimately we will be asking ourselves who owns the initiatives. And if the certain organization is providing a certain initiative, will there be sustainability? Because sustainability is coupled with the term ownership, and ownership is it can be coiled as a community-owned production of whatever produce that you will be having in certain community. So community-owned food production means to say that if certain organization like Good Neighbors, we should be able to identify clearly who are the key players. Are these key players have the technology? If they don't have the technology, we pass on the technology. How can they be able to embrace the technology? Because ultimately, they will be owning the technology later on for sustainability's sake. And we should be able to ask ourselves, are the programs, are the projects, are the initiatives will stay longer, wherein it will serve the coming generations. So I think that's a community ownership. We don't only talk of now. We also talk of how many years from now, so that the ownership that we have produced for this generation can also be owned by the other generation. And in essence, that is a sustainability. That is, I think, the true essence of community ownership. So that the good things, the models, the practices that we have initiated will transcend to other generation. So in essence, it's a long-term process. When we talk of community ownership, we don't just scan the environment based on the current situation, but we should look beyond. So I think that's the community ownership on our cultural practices in Good Neighbors.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to think that when you were telling that story of community ownership, really the main goal for NGOs or other groups that work with communities is that by the end of the project, you shouldn't be needed there. You should be able to exit, and that the communities will be able to own the project, and it is autonomous, yes, but also they are interdependent with each other. There's a communication with the things that are going on in that community, and they're able to communicate that with you and communicate that with other communities that are also starting similar things. So Ms. Vi, how did that pan out for you in Philippine Coffee Alliance when you were starting to work with the farmers and really trying to lead them as their own entrepreneurs?
In the coffee industry, in the local coffee industry, I am one of the most controversial players. Because I would always tell the farmers, you have to say no. You have to learn how to say no. You don't just say yes, 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 yes. Because, but when you say no, you will have to say why. This is what I want. This is what we need. This is what is best for us. This is what will work from experience. Even for training, we do not just advocate what is being taught by science itself, because we have to consider all the cultural practices. We have to consider what is working for them, because there are so many microclimates in the Philippines. Like, say, for example, in Sagada, where I am staying right now, in one mountain itself, there would be several microclimates in just one mountain. So if I'm here staying in Lamagan, the other town would have a different climate from what Lamagan is experiencing, and it's just 3 kilometers away. So from our experience, it's not just about what the LGU is telling you to do, what the other NGOs are providing you with. It's more of what you need, what you want, what are your aspirations, what are the things that has to be done. So that is the framework that we worked on. It is not just about, and we always tell them, you cannot improve your life if you don't have an enterprise that you own or you run or you manage. We encourage them to be entrepreneurs. We encourage them to learn on their own. We encourage them to learn from others. And that is what we're doing. It is a relationship between farmer to farmer, or farmer to buyers, farmer to suppliers, farmer to NGOs, farmer to the LGUs. It is a complete cycle from soil to cup. It cannot be one over another. So when we started this model, 2007, everyone was telling us, you will not be able to do it. But lo and behold, we proved them all wrong. When you do a value chain approach, you may probably enter it, probably one point, but it has to be multi-level. It has to be multi-stakeholder. It has to be everything in between and outside. It cannot just be one. It has to be complete. If it's not complete, if it's not holistic, there will be no community-owned enterprise to speak of. And when I say also production systems, it is not just a system to produce, it must be a system to consume as well. I will repeat myself time and again that you cannot just plant coffee. You see, with Alliance, it is not, the fulcrum that we use is that the quality of the life of the farmers precede the quality of the trees. I cannot tell the farmers, you should improve your quality, okay? I will not buy from you if you don't improve your quality. We never say that. What we do is that, what are your needs? What do you want? Because the first time I bought coffee from a farmer in Benguet, and that was 2006, coffee Arabica was the farm gate for green coffee beans. Green coffee beans is the raw material for coffee. It was 40 to 60 pesos in 2006. At the moment, currently, Arabica is selling for, at the lowest, probably 350 or 400, and it can even reach 600. That's the price differences. And at 40 to 60 pesos, no farmer will be able to produce any quality of coffee. We bought, our social investment for coffee was, I bought all kinds of coffee. You see, there's market for coffee, markets A to E. I can sell 24,000 pesos per kilo of the civet coffee without any marketing at all. And I can sell the cheapest coffee, even cheaper than the multinational companies. Because we can do it. We have the technology, we have the experience, and we have the know-how. I will continue later. Suspense. Cliffhanger. No. Because the experience of drinking Filipino coffee, it's not just the cup. The experience of drinking Filipino coffee is knowing who the farmer is. Every cup that we drink, the cup that you're drinking right now is traceable to the farmer who grew it. That's how traceable we are. Proudly traceable, Filipino. You should be proud of Filipino coffee because it's good. And because for every cup that you drink, a Filipino farmer is happy and is making money and is being able to put food on the table, not just coffee. Because farmers before, when we started this business or this model at all, farmers were trading their green coffee beans for instant coffee. How pathetic. I do not want to see that anymore. So now farmers are not just drinking their own coffee, farmers are now offering their coffee for you to enjoy. Okay?
Thank you. I am so resonating with what you were saying, that it should be relationships at the core of it. Sometimes we forget right? That food can be a vessel for that, a conversation, connecting with another human being. And really, sometimes when I think about the term value chain, it seems very industrial that we forget about, the small details. When you go on ground, these are real people. These are farmers that we're talking to. And the imagination for that is we're also part of that value chain as consumers or producers. And I was thinking earlier that we're looking at it more of as a circular system, right? With that thinking that it's a circular system, it's new, it's regenerative, all of these things, it might seem very overwhelming, especially for community development projects that work hand in hand with people. Have you encountered any challenges? Of course, there will be lots of challenges when you're in the field. What were the major pain points or challenges that you encountered working with communities? Also, at this point, we're also inviting the audience to write down on small pieces of paper. The ACTED team will distribute it so that after the session, we can post it on the wall and we can read each other's experience as well. So, like the guide question, we're offering the space for you to write down what pain point or what challenge in your own respective field or practice have you encountered that you think needs to be addressed? Yeah. All right. So while they are doing that, feel free to write down anytime. Let's hear from any one of our panelists. Anyone can go first. Sige po, Sir Dan.
Mike is with me. Thank you, Tonyo. So most of the challenges in our farmers and fisher folks are access to capital, because after they've harvest, they have to pay back their many loans, or many payments and higher value of inputs. And the challenge is whether the output that they harvest will have a good price. So that is a problem. In particular, in our areas in seaweed farming in Hilutungan, now is the season for seaweed farming, but they don't have money to buy for the seedlings. There are government assistance from the Department of Agriculture through BFAR, certain inputs for seaweeds, but the space for planting is not maximized. So now the time for the season in that area is September to February, and the drying is March to April. So I asked them how we can help. What will be the incentives of people who wants to partner or invest with you? Not just the approach with the middlemen, wherein they give you the seedlings and then they pay or buy at a lower price. So now we have to, as was mentioned by Ms. Vi, that you have to listen to what they want on the price and what negotiation. Because I told them, like, okay, assuming that you need the seedlings and how much area, then what will be the proper interest or ROI of the partner? Because we don't want to just give out. So they think, and they say, okay, maybe 10% or 20% interest, and then they have the priority to buy our harvest at this price. So they now learn how to make negotiations, diba? And that's how we come in as a NGO, development, or social enterprise, looking at that area on seaweeds. But you know what? With the climate impacts and the warming of our waters, seawater, for the past 20 years, seaweed production in the Philippines is declining. In fact, we have friends from Indonesia. They have learned from seaweed from us, but they are the exporters of seaweeds here in the country, Indonesia. And we are a vast archipelagic country where we have the marine, which is untapped. So we have to and then our land has been decreasing, right? So how can we increase local food production with less land? So you go vertical. We have initiatives in the island, like they can plant their own vegetables, even container garden, hydro or aqua with solar, because it's important also as well, and creating marine culture that are not that should be regulated, not so much. No? And these are on the ground. The challenge is either capital, either resilient seedlings or technology, and the market is always there. The middlemen are always there. They are just on the lookout. But the question is, as what was mentioned about changing the lives, improving the lives of our food heroes should come first, because if they're enjoying that quality of life, definitely we are going to enjoy the quality of food or harvest that they generate, provided we take care of the soil, we take care of the water, we take care of the environment. And that's what the message is all about, taking good care of our natural resources. That's where we grow and live and benefit from it.
Thank you. All right. Any one of you can react to that or add like a pain point or a challenge?
If I may add, challenges for us would be, don't get me wrong, we work with government. It's just that government is very hard to talk to. Okay. I'd like government to hear and listen to what we are saying. And when I say we, the smallholder farmers and the small entrepreneurs, government tends to listen or adapt to what the big players are telling them to. It's very rare that government would really side with the small players because you're small. But we want impact. And if we want impact, government should listen to the small players. Say, for example, Filipino coffee. There are a lot of imported coffees coming in. There's no protection being provided by the government for imported coffees coming in. It's tax-free and it's easy to import coffee. What do? There are a lot of imported coffees right now being sold online and through inline stores, wherein imported coffees are being labeled, sold as local coffee. The question is, if it's imported coffee and processed here in the Philippines, can we call it local? See, there are a lot of policies that has to be modified or edited or amended. But it is so much a challenge for us just to pass a resolution. I am part of the technical working group for Filipino coffee. So I sit on the board of Department of Agriculture and sometimes by DTI. But it's a challenge for me, for a voice to be heard, wherein we talk in behalf of the smallholder farmers or the small players. Second, I have been playing in my mind for so many years now, how can I make green coffee beans become security or collateral? Because farmers keep their green coffee beans and store them inside their house, inside their homes. They convert these green coffee beans for cash when they need cash. So how can there be a system wherein in the financing system or the scheme of things for financing, how can I secure or have these green coffee beans recognized as part of collateral or security? I have a lot more challenges, but for this, probably for this group, these two are the major policies that I would want put on the table.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Vai. Yes.
Yeah, I think there are so many challenges, and if I can describe it, these challenges are sometimes unsurmountable. Number one question is, can we be able to lift them up from the sphere of poverty? Because for development organization, this is our core, majority of us, this is our core goal, to remove them from the sphere of poverty. But doing that, there are so many factors around. Another one concrete example is looking at the key players themselves, like for example, the farmers. what is the range of their knowledge in terms of farming, in terms of selling their produce, in terms of making byproducts of their produce. I think for the farmers, majority of them, they are just confined with farming, and then they harvest their produce. After that, where do this produce being sold out to? Do we have the lucrative market? Or these produce are just circulated within the community, and the price within the community is not high to compensate the investments of the farmers. So I think this is one of the major challenges that the farmers encounter, I think, since time immemorial. I think we need to widen their horizon in terms of acknowledging the value chain, that we are not just planting seed. We are not just nurturing the plants that we have planted. We are not just there to harvest them. More than that, where do we market this produce? So for the side of the local government units, I think they also have the crucial role in creating markets for our farmers, because creating markets, I think, is beyond the control of our farmers. They don't have the resources, but I think the external institutions, partners, and of course the local government units, they have the political power, they have the resources. So I think these are the things that we look into, or not just looking into it, but rather turning these things into productive programs, putting in resources, putting in budgets, capacitating people, so that these farmers can have a better access to markets. Because this is one of the major problems that I think we close our eyes to. I think it's big reality confronting our farmers. So I think this is one of the solutions, I think, that we need to put in front, so that we can be able to address the main problem of the farmers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Maybe one last thing. The next question is, who will be the next farmers and fisher folks in the country and the rest of the world? Are young people looking at farming for food security, a new career, right? So there should be more schools, maybe family farm schools, more incentives for pushing for agriculture, agri-technology. And in fact, in our projects in the island in Cebu and in the upland mountain in Monungal, we just don't look at farmers. We create an opportunity for them to be bamboo crafts and provide them. In fact, 2 years ago, we created a Bayanihan, which was launched 2 years ago, but there was the pandemic. But the idea is not just planting, integrating bamboo architecture, strengthening these bamboo, not just for toothpick and barbecue stick, but looking at Thailand, Indonesia, how they incorporate bamboo in architecture. And in Cebu, we have known architects in bamboo we work with and develop a home, what we call homestay, hopefully in that village. At the same time, they become our future craftsmen in bamboo insulation in the future. So take a look at the communities you've served, if they're into agri or fishers, but the potentials can be buried through other skills out of season for farming and fishing. Philippines is battered with so many typhoons right now. About 22 of the 22 typhoons, 7 are super typhoons. And in fact, the recent Carding typhoon on the north, this is now the production or harvesting of the rice. But are we in a shortage right now? Maybe because of the flooding, maybe, So we need to look at the supply chain for rice and resiliency. And we have to create curation of data in terms of municipal or in the areas, like who are the producers, how many hectares, what are they producing, what are they harvesting. So that should be also embedded in the local or in the regional or national scale to look at, are we sustainable or are we food secured, and what food are we going to consume? Are we look at the Philippines. I don't know if top 3 items we only export. No, can we increase those crops that we are going to export, considering that our land for agriculture are getting lower because of development, right? So it's sad to say we have to do some Internet of Things or technology there. And look at our marine. We are naturally a vast country and it's not yet tapped. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd also like to think that there are two things that are governing all of these challenges, or at least two main things from my point of view that really affect how we encounter our agriculture systems or farming systems. So the Philippines is an archipelago, and it has so many different cultures and different topographies. You know, you have very low level coastal communities, and then you have mountainous areas. Often, I think this is an epidemic that we don't look at, but I believe there's a monoculture of the mind already, from what my friend would say. What does that mean? We've been trained to think that there are blanket solutions to everything. You know, one variety, one practice or protocol, one crop or commodity to focus on per area. But that leads to so many complications when you look at it from the imagination of the economies of scale. We're so focused on industry and like tons and tons of commodities. But, you know, from our experience and from various research that has been done over the past decades, that has led us to, number one, the degradation of our soils, right? So we're looking at monocultures of, let's say, corn or rice or plantations of palm. And we see that the soil and the productivity in that area is declining. And often, we can't resist from thinking that vast lands need to be converted into, you know, plantations, converted into commodity crop plantations. I think there should be a lot of leeway for other approaches to food security, like agroforestry, or but more biodiverse approaches to farming that center really the farmer and the biodiversity that we are interacting within these ecosystems. The second one that I think is facing us, and the IPCC has published a report recently that we only have 5 years on Earth to live a comfortable life because of climate change or the warming climate. And a lot of people don't believe that. But we see that the Philippines is one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world. And we are at the receiving end of that warming. And now we think that there's no way out of this, but really agriculture has that power also. We're converting vast lands of, you know, that used to be forests into agricultural land. But, you know, the perfect approach to it is really to join these two things together, that you can regenerate land while also making it productive and usable for people. Yeah. And which leads me to this part or this segment in our conversation to talk about the things that worked within your communities, the things that have been inspiring, the stories that you've been gathering from on ground. What ideas worked? What solutions worked for you? Can you tell us more about that? Anyone can share. Go ahead. Sige po.
Yeah, in many years of implementing projects in our communities, I think what excites us is the participation of the people, a receptiveness of the ideas that we are introducing. Because we are communicating with a farmers group whose age range would from 40 to 60. And prior to entering a certain community, we have these reservations that this group of people that we will be targeting might not be able to accept the ideas. But I ironically, when we penetrate the community, because we do participatory approach, and that is the beauty of working with communities, the community development in the process becomes very enjoyable because you get to get their involvement, you get to get their participation, and you get to elicit so many ideas, which ideas are very fruitful, very bankable. And I think this is one of the things that we are very excited in so many years, penetrating vulnerable and marginalized communities. So I think that alone, I think it is not a very big source of joy, but it can create a ripple of effect. Because the involvement of the people themselves would mean the acceptance of the things that you are introducing to them that will lead to bigger project milestones. So I think so far, those are the simple things that we can share to the audience and to the other people listening to our programs and services.
Thank you.
I have witnessed a lot of small success stories here and there, which means that they don't need me anymore. Meaning they're starting to stand up on their own. And that's a good thing for me. Seeing them telling me, "Oh, Miss Vi, how are you?" They're the ones asking me, "How am I?" when I should be asking them, "How are you?" So I've seen a lot of this. I've seen a lot of children of farmers going into farming themselves. That means that they see their parents putting food on the table, being able to educate them because of coffee. I'd like them to experience more of what I am experiencing also as a social entrepreneur. I'd like to see more farmers going into farmer entrepreneurship. And it also means a lot to me if we will be shying away from drinking instant coffee. Why? Because instant coffee the green coffee beans used for instant coffee are imported. I have nothing against imported coffee. But if we have a choice between local and imported, I would urge you to go for local coffee. And 90% of the consumption, domestic consumption of Filipinos are for instant coffee, the 3-in-1. You see, my yaya at home doesn't drink coffee or doesn't drink 3-in-1 anymore because so many stories not to be told anymore. But when she started drinking coffee of what we produce, she said, "Mom, I can go now to the banyo every day. Okay? And I don't have acidity in my stomach. Hindi po nangangasim yung tiyan ko." So on and so forth. So when everyone else is going specialty coffee, okay, because this is what is being promoted by government, let's go specialty so we can export coffee. I go the other way around. I would choose the path less traveled. And I would go get a market share of the instant coffee. And that's what we're doing right now. And since 2012, I have been toying in my mind, how can I get market share of instant coffee? That's 90%. 90%. A multinational company, coffee company, earns 40 to 50 billion pesos, and that was before pandemic, every year. If I can just get 5 to 10% of that market share, okay, I can go to the US every day, so to speak. But my dream is only so that Filipinos will be drinking local coffee. And if I can convert the instant coffee market for a local instant coffee, I will do it. And I have started it already. In fact, I have a product called Ininstant. What is it? It's just a process technology, a process innovation, wherein I don't have to spray dry or freeze dry coffee so that I can make it instant. I only have to pulverize it, powder form, and it will melt. The extraction rate for powder coffee without any chemicals, any additives, no flavorings is just seconds, 3 to 5 seconds. Pulverized coffee will melt. It will not be fully soluble, but it will still be drunk. I learned that in Mindanao when we did the 45-day trip round. My husband and I would go around the Philippines by using 4x4, and we went around the Mindanao communities, and that's where we learned that the Muslims, Arabs, Muslims drink pulverized coffee. This is called also Turkish coffee in colonial in lingos of coffee. So we just did a Filipinized version of the Turkish coffee, and we called it in instant. It's a matter of branding. So it's still a challenge for us to capture that market share that we have been aspiring for, so that instant coffee or in instant will be advocated and drank by locals, by domestic market, and even probably abroad. I just finished attending the International Food Exhibition, and I was very, and it made me very happy to know that Filipinos, not just the people from the rural areas or Mindanao areas or the Muslims, if they are able to find out that it tastes good and it matches the money in their pocket, they will support it. So then again, I will go back to my admonishing you guys, drink local coffee.
We just drink coffee. Yeah. All right. So in my case, most joys that we found is young people are now taking actions. No, young people. In fact, in Hilutungan, we have seaweed farmers of like 150, and one of the president is, although he got married, but he's young. No, less than maybe 25 years old. That he's taking the role as president for that people's organization. So investing in young people, providing with opportunities in either farming or in the fishing sector, whether it's women or IPs, no? We have to provide them opportunities. And that's the way to go, because you can't just teach old dogs new tricks, they say. And that's all we have to do. We keep on looking for new communities, and sometimes it fails, but we look for other key people that you can find, and then if it's ripe to pick up, no, or parang you've got a good spot, then you plant the seed, and for sure it will grow. So don't be, sabi na, don't just stop there when it fails. So try to look at the process and see where to correct. And that's what we always do, continuous improvement. Yes.
Yes, thank you. At this point, we'd like to look at how we might be able to mainstream more equitable and sustainable and just food production systems. What can be the pathways to that? What are possibly solutions or policy recommendations, or things, small things that need to change, or solutions that need to happen for this thing to take place? And we'd also like to invite the audience to maybe write a short phrase or sentence of something that you think needs to be done for food production systems to be more just and to be more people-centered. All right. Anyone can go first.
May I start?
Yes.
I'll keep it short. A production system will never work if there's no consumption system aligned with the production that we are doing. What am I saying? I'm talking about Filipino coffee again. To mainstream it, all we have to do as consumers here in the room is to support and be an advocate for local coffee. There is a market for each and every one, or there is coffee for each and every market segment that we can think of. since there's expensive coffee for people who are more snooty about coffee. You want your origins? We can give you origins. If you just want kape lang tayo dito, we can have kape for you. If you want coffee that is convenient, fast, instant, we have that as well for you. So all I'm saying is that as far as mainstreaming Filipino coffee, it's all about the consumers here in this room. And outside the room, when you go out of the room, I would encourage you, I advocate, I urge each and everyone to be mindful of the cup you will drink starting tomorrow morning. When you drink a cup of coffee, am I drinking Filipino coffee? So you start with that. That's how to mainstream Filipino coffee. It's the cup that you have. Ang kape po ay mula binyag hanggang lamay. What am I saying? You drink coffee, you offer coffee. The first thing that when you go to any house or to any government office, the first thing that you will be offered, kape. Okay? When you want to discuss something, where do you meet? Coffee shop. Pag nasa bahay po tayo, ano po ang unang-unang hinahanap natin sa umaga? Kape. Okay? Yung mga hindi po makatulog sa gabi, minsan nag-iinom pa ng kape. So, for me, as a takeaway for everybody here, please think of local coffee. And local coffee that is authentic and traceable. Hindi yung local lang kasi ginawa dito. Okay? Or it's being promoted and marketed as local. These are two different things. Being a buyer of coffee is a buyer's risk. So when you buy coffee and it says local coffee, Kapeng Encanto, ayan po, totoong Filipino coffee yan. Pag sinabi pong Mindoro, galing po yan sa mga mangyan. Maraming salamat po.
In terms of policy, I think for me, I would like to encourage everyone that when you do advocacy, present policy briefs. I think in relation to farmers, maybe we can introduce a climate smart agriculture policies, because we have so many policies at the local level, even at the national level. But the question is, are these climate smart agriculture policies? If not, maybe we can introduce, or if there are existing policies at the local level, maybe we can strengthen. And strengthening would mean institutionalizing some programs which are climate resilient agricultural practices, so that our farmers can be able to be helped, and we can induce some change in terms of sustaining their efforts and initiatives.
Yes, thank you. For me, one also of the contributors of higher costs of the production and transport is transportation, no, of these goods and services. How we can look at that way to support our transfer of goods, no? If it's going to be going to one island or one province to the other, mahal po ang ating logistics. Then second is we need to, as I said earlier, we need to come up with a data curation of agricultural areas, what are they produce, so we know where to source. And in educating the season, looking at the climate right now, very challenging, longer droughts, longer kanang La Nina, and where are we going to, as I said, climate smart agriculture? Where will that be? No? So that has to be studied and supported by our Department of Agriculture. One example I've heard from our friends in Dinagat Island, we have an existing project with the seaweeds there. During the COVID pandemic, mga fisher folks, instead of giving money for the people, the provincial government 2 years ago, I saw that they give like 20 pesos to the fisher folks so that the buyer can buy, and yung price ng mga isda will still remains the same. So parang may subsidize kung sa fuel, you also subsidize in terms of food for the farmers, not to lower their cost. At the same time, for the consumers, they can also buy. So that's how that province, I was so happy getting to know what they're doing during COVID pandemic, supporting our food heroes. And then the question is, are we looking at our farmers and fisher folks as food heroes? Are we helping them? Are we doing haggle when we buy their produce in the communities? More on also maybe creating more farm what you call this farm markets. In Cebu, we have a group called organic farmers. Then there's a day like Saturday, Sunday, the groups goes there, no? And one of the commercial malls also, they have a partnership with the Department of Agriculture. They offer a free space in the mall for them to display on a Saturday, Sunday. So these are very good initiatives to provide market locations to our farmers groups, and they can sell more. So we can produce our food, but the question is it of high value? Are we looking at protecting also our land, our water? That's why we go more to the agri and perma than pesticides or chemicals, because in the end it creates a negative impact to our water system. So that's all for now.
Thank you. Yes. I hope we can all agree that we want an enabling environment for farmers to do their best work. And at the core of it, I believe that we need to address this from a rights perspective. That farmers aren't doing their best work because they don't have the proper welfare to support themselves, right? They don't have the safety nets to risk better. Risking better means to try out other farming systems that are healthier for them, healthier for the environment. From our work together with farmers, it's always the fear for them to invest or adapt a technology, because they fear that at the end of that process, the company or the NGO will let go of them, and then they'll be left with nothing. They invested in something, they worked on it. That's time and energy. When you're out in the field, it's hot. The conditions are not always proper, and it's hard for farmers to take that leap of trust to adapt better technologies when they don't have a soft landing. When, for example, let's say they adapt a certain variety of rice that yields better, but are they sure of, when the typhoon season comes in, do they have proper crop insurance? And this is something that I've had a direct experience with. We were planting an area with corn before, and then that was 2020. A typhoon came in, and then a volcano erupted. This was in Silang, and we applied for crop insurance during the planting season, and we never got any callback from the government agency that we applied with. So how can farmers do their best work when you don't have that, you don't have that safety, right? It's really something that a lot of young people, I think, they don't want to get into farming because it's a lot of risk. There's no job security in it, because the environment is not enabling for young farmers to come in, for them to develop themselves as agripreneurs, because the givens are not there. It might be, okay, one solution might be distributing land, but do you have the capital to start that? All of these things. So when we create a policy or a program, it needs to be very holistic and specific to the context that it's applied in. also linked to, welfare of farmers is really like the just distribution of land, like proper land reform. You see farmers cooperatives are at the same time failing because it's hard for them to aggregate. It's hard for them to pool together resources to become a proper working cooperative. It's hard for them to, buy large amounts of inputs. They're buying at retail and selling at wholesale. How is that? That doesn't make sense. So really allowing farmers to have those safety nets, I think, is important. And that will open up avenues of alternatives for farmers to take on more advanced farming systems, more biodiverse, more people-centered. Yeah. So at this juncture, we are welcoming the audience to ask questions to the panel. And we'd like to have a conversation with you. Yeah. Yes. Anyone can, and also the internet viewers, you can also punch in there's one. You can come forward. Yeah.
Okay. I just would like to ask two questions. First, it's related to the, I know it's not really discussed in this forum, but it's related to sustainability certifications. So for the smallholder farmers, especially those having the land inside of the forest, so agroforestry and etc., can they access these sustainability certifications? Because the last discussion I had a few years ago, they could not really access this sustainability certifications because they are located inside of the forest. But as we know that communities live in the forest or like adjacent to forest has been for so long time. And then a lot of them, and then like forest demarcation came in later sometimes. And then they are excluded from these certifications, right? And that's my question, whether like smallholder farmers, they can, especially those inside of forest, can access these certifications. And second question is whether these farmers really need these certifications to go ahead. I mean, in terms of improving their livelihood, welfare, etc. Because for agroforestry, they already implement sustainable agriculture technically. So why do they need this certification? So that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Anyone who can. All right. So if we got it right, so the first question is looking at if farmers have access to certifications. That's the first one. And then the second one would be if it is still necessary for farmers to operate even without certification, if it's okay. Yeah. Anyone can answer that.
I don't know what certification that requires. Now, maybe here in the country, we have the, what you call this participatory guarantee system in place for those who want to get certification, whether they are doing good practice or into natural or organic. We know that it's expensive to get a third-party organic label. So we do have that already in place locally in their local government, and there's a law for that. There are certifications in sense of the Department of Agriculture through the Agricultural Training Institute provides training community to farmers. In fact, we benefit a lot, and creation of learning sites. If you are a private or a cooperative, you do farming or fishing, you can apply and you get funding for improvement, or you can host a training where you can also get more income than just selling. So these are embedded in our program in the government, although I didn't work with the DA, but we are beneficiary for that, yes.
It just adds on the cost. No, I share this from first-hand experience. We were the farthest supplier of a healthy store in the mall. We were moving 2 tons of vegetables every week via airplane from Bukidnon all the way to the stores every week. They required us to ask for a OCCP. That's $1,000 every year. And then when a certain agency went to our farm or the farm that we were working in, they were the ones even asking what our practices were, and they didn't know what they were doing because they're book smart. It's just adding to the cost. Can I just say that can we just learn from everyone, share each other's experience, best practices, and that's it? Okay? It's just adding to the cost. Can we simplify and say, cut the BS, let's move forward. We all need to just grow vegetables, feed our neighbor, that's it, we're done. Okay?
Yeah, I agree if it's like locally source and supply, but when you go to a mall, they always look at for safety. When you try to export goods,
Yeah.
they look at certain certification. But you know what? I was really thinking on that line during the COVID pandemic. We're in a lot of countries that we can provide high value fish or mga crabs. And assuming, like, for example, in an island where I live in Helutungan, and they are even getting urchins, these are high value for Japan, the umi. What if we have a sharing economy or shared business wherein an existing certified processor, we can partner with them and use their certain certifications and then send it with a certain fee, right?
It's very simple. In the value chain, you certify the processing site, not the farms, not the communities. It's going to be too expensive. You certify the community, yes, the farm, but the processing for export, that's what you certify based on the process inside on your value chain process inside. Kasi packing yan eh. It's based on, for example, if you want to do Cavendish, there's practices. May calibrator kami na pag ginanon mo, pag hindi tapon yan, right? However, if you look at it from a local perspective, it's different, right? So the certification sometimes to get into the supermarket level, I understand that firsthand because again, hiningi sa amin yan, but we could not recover the cost, right? So it adds additional burden for people and it takes out the hope of people how to get into better markets. Now, if it's volume, that's a different story. Kasi kaya yan eh. Right? So let's quantify the narrative because if we put these extra burdens on people gusto na nga ng tao mag-backyard farming eh para mag-self-sustenance, that's fine. Commercial, ibang storya yon, right?
I like you. Certification works for the traders. Certification works for the buyers. Whenever I'm asked for certification, I would always say, are you willing to pay for it? Because if you're not willing to pay for it, let's not talk about certification. Well, we export to the US and when I'm asked, what are your certifications, ma'am? I have US FDA and I can go inside US. My products can go inside the US. My products can go to Japan. And if these countries accept my coffee, it will be accepted elsewhere. Certification is something that works. Again, it's not for the farmers. Certification works for that's my point of view. Okay, if certification works for the farmers, if it will not, as you've said, add extra cost to them. If it will add knowledge to them, then probably certification will have some space for the farmers, for the producers. But at the end of the day, certification is for the traders, for the buyers.
Yeah, totally agree. Also, there are working models for, like more community-led certification, if it's a term. So there's this thing called community-supported agriculture. So I know Rural Rising is something like that. Good Food Community is also practicing that. So it's looking at a system where people know each other. The farmers, the producers are connected directly with the consumers. And it's in that link that there's trust. You don't need to go through a very rigorous OCCP process or GAP certification or whatever. These standards are in place. The Philippine National Standard for OAP, for example, is in place for larger, more commodity-centered produce so that you can trade. Yeah, but really allowing for, smaller systems to thrive. I think that's really good, important. Yeah. Thank you. Who else would like to raise a question? Okay, last question. All right.
Thank you. I don't know if this is the right question to ask, but nagbabaka sakali lang. Well, my question is, how do we work together to make sure that our policies and programs are made in a level of parang in a strategy, a bottom-up approach? Kasi if we're going to look at the programs and the policies that we have right now in the Philippines, like for example, with the programs, sometimes it does not actually match on the needs of the farmers at the ground. Like for example, they actually need market, but pero ang binibigay sa kanila is mga inputs and whatnot. And sometimes the policies are also, kumbaga yung policy natin were made na hindi naka-align doon or walang representative from the farmers. Like for example, I have this saying that we speak the same language but we don't actually understand each other. Kasi yung mga requirements and all, like for example, the certification, it does not actually talk about the cost eh. Malaki or mahal ang cost, but actually the process is very tedious. Sobrang haba ng proseso at sobrang gulo. So, I don't know.
Thank you, Norhaya. All right.
I just have a very quick answer to your question, how? Well, it's a matter of being vocal about what you want, what you're pushing for policy, but it's about being heard and understood. As you said, there's a way to communicate and to complain probably, but not complaining per se, but telling government as a matter of policy, in a form of policy, how it should be done. If there's only one voice speaking, a small voice, probably government will say, nuisance. But if it's a voice being shared and communicated by the many, probably government will listen, will start to listen. It's a matter of making government take interest in the cause. And if it's more than one voice, and if it's the voice of many, then probably, as I've said, government will start to take interest and listen and probably do something about it. That's where I'm coming from.
I think for legislation, I think we think of votes, we think of numbers. Because the policymakers, these are the elected officials, no? And then the people down the ground, we need to consolidate our efforts. Because if the efforts of the people are consolidated, like 30,000 farmers, I think that's huge. And I think the legislators will not just brush off their shoulders, because if you think of votes, they would really buy that. So I think speaking of that, we really have to have a good mobilization of the people down the ground. Like for example, in developing and crafting policy briefs, it should come from the people to whom we are working. So I think that would create a better efficiency in terms of acknowledging policy briefs or legislations that you want to bring up at the local level, national level. So the bottom up that you are telling would really come from the mechanisms of organizing themselves, consolidating their efforts, consolidating their voices. And these voices will be re-echoed at the council level, at the provincial level, at the regional, and even at the national level. I think you are right that magulo, and there are so many problems encountered, and sometimes our policies are coming at the top level and these are not being felt when it is being passed by cameral sometimes. So that is the problem, and I think sinasabi natin walang ngipin. So if you want to turn the table around, I think we need to do our efforts at the ground level where we can be able to consolidate the voices of the people by counting their numbers.
Just one more sentence. You have to make yourself successful. You have to work at it. Because if you're not successful, who will listen to you?
And Norhaya is doing a great job sa seed. Yeah. Yes. All right. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us, Miss BC, Miss Vi, and Sir Dan, and for our audience for dialoguing with us to think about and propose ways forward for more community-owned food production systems to thrive. So the sticky notes that you wrote on earlier, the first question, we will be sticking to that post if you wrote any. So we can read through your thoughts as well. So you can put it at that post dun sa taas. The pain points, all right? And then the solutions that you think are necessary to happen, you can put on the bottom part of that poste. Yes. The paper is also good, yes. All right, so we'll use the paper. So to close this session, we'd like to leave you food for thought. I hope the conversations were nourishing for you. Right, so we're talking about people-centered and nature-centered food production systems. And we'll leave you with a question. So with all of these proposals and projects and frameworks that we're talking about, at the end of the day, who are we creating value for? Right? Who are we creating value for? Is it for ourselves? Or is it for us to share with the other people that we work with? All right. So thank you very much for your time. And this was the panel on community food production systems. Salamat.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.